watching my channel lately, then you're probably well aware of the fact that this has definitely not been my month when it comes to finding cars. In fact, I've barely found anything all month, and here we are with less than a week left in the month. And because of that, I decided to start up a new series to release on my channel every Friday called Tie Day, where I could take a look at some cars that I chose to review that weren't new releases, that were just in my collection that I wanted to put a bit more focus on by reviewing them. And after last week's first episode on 3PO R2, the C-3PO and R2-D2 Luigi and Guido, I had everything planned to do another episode this week. But, you know, a lot of things can change in 1 week. For example, last week I showed how one of the only things I bought this month was this Funko Pop of Harley Quinn. And now, a week later, things have changed because now I own 2 Funko Pop figures of Harley Quinn. Riveting stuff!
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
But another change that happened in the past week was that I finally actually found cars this month. I was able to pick up Pixar Fest Luigi and Guido, Dewey Conrad, and one more far less interesting car that I bought to do a repaint of eventually. It's just sterling, nothing too special. But I'm so glad to have found Pixar Fest Luigi and Guido, as I was starting to get concerned that I would never find them. You see, last month, when they released the new wave of Pixar Fest cars, I was able to pick up Lightning, Ramon, and Sally all at once the first time I saw them. But I never saw Luigi and Guido, and I was definitely starting to get concerned that I just wouldn't end up finding them. I kept seeing these 3, but never these 2. But now I'm so glad that I finally have them. And they're super cool because they are the first ever metallic Luigi and Guido. And I honestly never expected them to get a Pixar Fest variant or Pixar Fest variants. So I'm really excited to take a look at these guys. Anyway guys, welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Pixar Fest 2021 Luigi and Guido. So let's get started. We of course have some warnings here for small parts. They put those on all Luigi and Guidos. I think it's just for Guido's forklift arms there. But you can see Radiator Springs McQueen, who of course was the McQueen that they made a Pixar Fest version of this time, as well as Ramon and Sally. Moving on to the back, Luigi and Guido, Ramon, Lightning McQueen, and Sally all there. So glad to finally have this set of cars completed. Interesting about these things... What did I just say? Interesting thing about these cars is what I meant to say. I probably mentioned this in one of my other Pixar Fest reviews, but they're actually made in Thailand compared to most of the other non-mainline cars, which are now made in Vietnam. But here we have Luigi and Guido out of the package. Starting off with Luigi here. Oh wow, I really like how these 2 turned out. They look really cool. Very similar shades of blue to the to last year's Mater and Ramon. But yeah, Luigi here has a pretty good modern Luigi expression. Looks pretty similar to, you know, most of the more recent Luigi expressions. Very thick outline around the eyes, which is a little unfortunate, but hey, all Luigis have the outline. This one just seems a bit bigger than usual. Got the Pixar logo on the hood with the Luxo ball there. Very nice grin. I really love how, like, sparkly the metallic paint on this guy is. Seems that, like, the mustache and the bumper are a darker silver than usual, or a darker gray. And the hair here, sort of hair-like roof thing, looks to be a bit of a lighter color, but it's probably just like, I don't think it is actually. It's just that the yellow on him is such a boldly different color that it's making this stand out for some weird reason for me. I don't know. We've got the Luxo lamp and ball there, of course, his classic white wall tires. On the back, his license plate with that license plate 445-10.8. Of course, that is, for those of you who don't know, a reference to, I believe, a Ferrari manufacturing plant. Those are the coordinates to it, which is really funny. There is a look at the other side, and there is the base. Last year's Pixar Fest cars had, like, Pixar written on them in more places. I'm really glad they got rid of that. I didn't think that looked too good. So they just reduced it to just the lamp and the ball, and I think that looks pretty nice. Guido is definitely interesting. Of course, all the Pixar Fest cars have the classic Luxo ball logo on their hoods, but Guido doesn't have a hood, so they put it on his roof, which is so interesting. It's so interesting to see a metallic Guido, but I'm so glad they did it. This honestly might be one of my all-time favorite Guido expressions. It's not that different from the usual one, but I think it looks really great. Of course, the forks aren't made metallic, as they're a plastic insert piece. Neither is this part here, which is a completely different color than it usually is on Guido. In fact, this blue they chose from here is basically the shade of blue that Guido normally is, compared to the much lighter color that is usually on this part of Guido. Definitely an interesting choice there, but unfortunately it's not metallic, but that's what Mattel does. You know, they only ever make one color on the metallic cars metallic, with very few exceptions to that. Luxo, ball, and lamp printed very small on the side. I really like how that doesn't take up that much space. I kind of like it being a bit more like subtle there, if you could ever call that subtle. Yeah, no, I like it being a bit smaller there. There's a look at his other side, basically identical. And there is a look at the base, if we could get it to focus. There we go. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Absolutely love how these guys turned out, and I really hope to see more Pixar Fest cars in the future. I really hope they do cars like Sheriff and Sarge and Fillmore. I think those would be great. And while we're on the subject of those, Flo. Flo really needs some more variants, honestly. Really disappointed. Flo still doesn't have a Christmas variant. Get on that, Mattel. Please. See you guys next time. Bye now.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate my power!